Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Matt Odegaard. Thank you for joining me here today at Church Public. Today we're just going to do a quick news roundup of a bunch of the stories that are going around the news today. There are a bunch. I've just selected a few that I think are interesting or maybe might be interesting to you. We just want to figure out what in the world is going on and how can we respond to it from a biblical worldview. Welcome to Church Public. Let's get started. Again, welcome back to Church Public. I'm Matt Odegaard, your host, and I appreciate you tuning in. Whether you are listening on audio through a device, maybe subscribed to Apple Music or Google or Spotify or now Amazon, basically anywhere you can get it, I appreciate it. Feel free to look for a notification on that. Click the notification part and give me a review if you want to. I really appreciate that. And if you want to share it, that really helps me too. If you want to see this on video, you can. You can get it at churchpublic.com. You can go to YouTube as well and search Church Public as one word. Again, I appreciate you viewing, sharing, and just letting other people know because I am trying to do this to help people understand what is going on in this world and how to engage in it from a biblical worldview. I think we need to do that more and more and more. So anyway, I just wanted to do a quick news roundup of some of the things that are going on. Hopefully you find this interesting and maybe even helpful. All right, so I reported on this the other day. I think I posted it somewhere, but I just wanted to dive in a little bit more. There are churches burning down in Canada, and no, not by themselves. People are burning down churches in Canada. And it's kind of a big deal. It's kind of a big deal. I think might have a picture here. Let me just have a second here. So this is one of the churches that was burned down just recently in Canada. And this is an issue. It's an issue because, and you're probably not hearing about it in many places because most news outlets are not reporting on this. And the reason is simple. People don't like Christianity and they don't like religion. And I think a lot of the news media probably thinks that religion should just go away anyway. So that's why you're not hearing much about this, but it is important to note. It's important to note that I believe at this point around 20 churches have been burned either all the way, like this picture that you see, or burned down part of the way. And then there's vandalism and arson and some other things that are going on. Well, the deal is that this is in response, presumably, to some mass graves that were found from some state-sponsored church programs of indigenous people over the past actually over a lot of years. And most of it happened many, many, many years ago. And they were not necessarily mass graves. They were just unmarked graves because when some of these, as far as I'm reading about this, and I've studied it a little bit, there's a lot that we don't know yet, but some of these people, and then some of them are children, were buried with wooden markers. And then after 50, 100 years, unfortunately, the wooden markers went away, and so they're unmarked, not necessarily mass. And so who knows what the full story is? Again, there are investigations going on. There should be investigations going on into this. The response should not, however, be that you burn down churches. And I did report on this the other day, but it just continues to go on. That was a picture that I showed you there. I think the piece that we have to point out is, like, one of these churches was a congregation of Vietnamese refugees who had literally left Vietnam because of specifically religious persecution and come to Canada, the loving, welcoming country in the north of America, to be able to practice their religion, and in this case Protestantism, following Jesus, and they were vandalized and desecrated. And there was another one that I read. There was an Egyptian, a set of Egyptian people who left Egypt because of religious persecution and went to, of all places, Canada to escape this religious persecution. And now their churches are getting vandalized and burned down. Like, what are we doing? The people from Egypt, the people from Vietnam, in no way had anything to do with anything the state or the state church did 50 or 100 years ago, obviously. So these things they may seem connected, and if you do hear some of these, they may appear to be connected. They're not connected at all. This is just angry people who are angry at the church, angry at God, whatever, and they're taking it out on what it's seemingly any church they can find, anything that looks like a church. But the bigger issue here, of course, is this world hates God, and we have let this culture go left, all the way liberal, all the way progressive, to the point where we don't believe we need God, we don't believe we need morality, we don't believe we need character or any of those things. And so the end result is, well, this church, whether they're saying big C, little c church, like the church, period, is responsible for all these deaths of poor children 100 years ago, so we need to destroy the whole church, period, full stop. I don't know what other conclusion to draw from this, but that seems to be what this is going. And you even have indigenous people standing up and saying, please stop doing this. This is not how we deal with these situations. There was, I'm looking for this person's name, and I apologize, I believe it is Alan Riley, who said, violence begets violence. We're asking people who are lighting churches on fire to stop. Whoever's doing this, you're going to wake up a very ugly, evil spirit in this country, and it's going to spread across this country, and it's going to destroy it. That was an indigenous representation. Again, people are burning down churches, but you need to know about this for the bigger issue that's going on. And if you think it's just Canada, just wait. It's not just Canada. People are looking for any excuse to say Christians are the problem. And we talked about that a little bit in some of the critical race theory stuff. But any organized religion, specifically a religion based on Christ, based on God as the head and God as your authority, is going to get in the way of some of these ideologies that are popping up in America, in Canada, in England, in Australia, any of these Western countries that up until now have been both Western in terms of Athenian Roman democracy and in terms of Judeo-Christian values. That combination of the two has informed a lot of the structure of all of these Western countries, and now that structure is literally crumbling before our eyes, and we're watching it happen. So that's an important thing to keep an eye on. I will continue to keep my eye on that and see what is going on and really what we can do about it. There's a lot going on there. So second quick news report is that the CDC has reversed their mask guidance. So that's fantastic. Here's a great little slide of some masks. I just thought it was red and terrifying anyway. If you can't see it, it's just masks. So they have now said, the CDC has now said, if you are vaccinated, you should now also wear your mask indoors. That is their latest thing. We'll talk about a couple of things they pointed out, but they said now vaccinated people are recommended to wear the mask indoors. So my question is, does the vaccine work or does it not work? Does the mask work or does it not work? It seems like not so much is working in any of the situations. And I've just, again, seen no study that a mask actually helps in other than an N95 mask worn correctly, which I've almost seen no one wear. I did see one person wear a full wraparound with the face shield and the two like rebreather things. I mean, that person was probably safe. Other than that, if you're wearing a sleeve, if you're wearing one of these things, like you're not wearing it right, you're not doing it right, like it's not doing anything. Sorry, that's just my opinion. You don't have to like it. I'll probably get banned for this. But according to the CDC, there are really high vaccination rates in some places. There was a study that just came out of California. This is a study that said high vaccination rates with high virus case counts, like LA, San Diego, Alameda, San Francisco. They have high vaccination rates. In other words, a lot of people have been vaccinated, and there's a high case rate. So does the vaccine stop all the cases? Probably not. But that's a cold. I mean, you're going to get a cold. Does it stop most of the deaths? Look at the death numbers. The death numbers are very low right now, especially in instance to earlier this year and last year where the numbers were very high. They're very low. So the case count might be going up, but the death count is not even close. But you have the CDC saying you need to go and wear a mask inside, even if you're vaccinated. So the vaccine is so effective that you have to wear a mask to stop you from getting the virus that you're vaccinated against. Or you also have President Biden saying, quote, 60% of adults are fully vaccinated. Nearly 70% started on vaccines. Cases are down and deaths are down dramatically. So deaths are down, but he's saying we all have to go get vaccinated. And he said on the vaccine, quote, vaccines are free, safe, and effective, so every American should get one. CDC is also recommending that vaccinated people begin wearing masks indoors, and teachers, staff, and students at all schools nationwide should wear masks indoors. So again, we're hearing these are two different things. If you haven't caught it, either the mask stops all of the infection and you can wear it and then avoid it, or the vaccine stops all the infection and you don't need the mask. But if you're getting the vaccine, but you also have to wear the mask, then what is the point of the vaccine? And I'm not even arguing at this point for vaccine effectiveness. Like, you can draw your own conclusion to that. I personally don't care what you do. I would appreciate if you don't care what I do. I don't care. Like, if you want to get it, great. If you don't, great. It doesn't matter to me. What matters is this government and these different parts of the government are saying the opposite things at the same time and expecting that you don't notice. It's literal crazy town. Like, if you got the vaccine, you are now presumably safe from dying from this virus. And every statistic that I've read shows that to be true. Yet, the CDC, Center for Disease Control, has now said, even if you have the vaccine, you still need to wear a mask, either for someone else or for yourself. It's very unclear, because if someone doesn't want to get it, now it's their fault if they get it. And if you don't want to get it, you've already got the vaccine, so presumably you're not going to get it. Or even if you do, it'll just be like cold and you'll be okay. Which, again, every statistic is bearing out. So which thing is it? This is fear, and it's going crazy. And then I do have a bone to pick with the kids part. Requiring kids to mask in schools is just ridiculous, and there is no statistic showing otherwise. The amount of kids to date that have died from this, out of, I believe, the population of children in America is somewhere in the 60, 70 million. The number of kids to date that have died from this is somewhere in the mid 300s, depending on which study you're reading. Might be as high as 700 out of 70 million. That is statistically zero. And yet the kids, you're saying, have to wear masks all day, every day in schools in order for us to what? Like, what's the goal? That's my question. What's the goal? How do we get to a goal here? Like, is the goal... I mean, the only goal I see that I'm hearing is wear the mask forever. If you have a vaccine, you have to wear the mask. If you're a kid and statistically unlikely of transmitting, even dying of this, still wear the mask. If you get a cold, wear the mask. You basically always wear the mask. So what is the signal? What is the level? What is the moment that happens when you don't have to anymore? There has been no indication of that, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be an indication of that, because this is, and has been for a long time, all about control. It is about people wanting to control you. If you listen to the CDC representative that gave, I didn't even record the thing because I'm not going to play it for you. You can go listen to it. There was no scientific study cited. You can go and listen to it. Fauci has, rarely cited numbers from a scientific study other than case numbers, which again, don't really matter that much. Case numbers don't matter. You're going to get sick. You're going to get a cold. Everybody gets a cold. Everybody gets sick sometimes. Everybody gets the flu. This is human life. So if the goal is to never get sick again in your life, I'm sorry, that's not a possible goal. It's just not. We're sick. We're broken. We're humans that get sick. We just do. You may have a wonderful lifestyle. You may take all the supplements and vitamins. You may be more healthy than some and not get sick as much, but I guarantee at some point in your life, you're going to get a cold. It's going to happen. And that's okay. Like, so what? What does it matter? That's what happens to us. It's happened to me my whole life. It'll probably happen to me the rest of my life until I die. Do you change the entire range of society towards being afraid of going outside, towards being afraid of other humans, that humans, instead of being the carrier of the impression of God, the view of God, the soul of God, to now a human is just a bag of germs that if you look at them, breathe, or they breathe on you, or you're too close to them, you are literally going to die, or you're going to cause other people to die. Like, we have degraded the absolute value of humanity, and that's why this is an important story from a spiritual perspective. You can disagree with me on the science. You can yell at me through your screen or your headphones. That's fine. You don't have to like it. You can look up all the studies. I've looked up a lot of studies. I've spent too much time looking at this. I just am at the point where I don't care that much anymore because I've looked at so many numbers. The studies don't bear out the things that they're saying. If you don't believe me, don't have to believe me. Go back in the last year and pull up clips of Fauci saying literally every side of every issue on the masks. He's been on mask, off mask, on mask, off mask in different situations. He literally has. So which is it? And through that time, again, statistically, scientifically, according to the studies, nothing has changed. There has not been a study that has changed the science in there. There just hasn't. So this is political. It is about control. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to react to this? Again, my suggestion is you use common sense and you do not let fear rule you. We are not a person of fear if we follow after God. The biggest commandment, the most repeated commandment in the entire scriptures is do not fear. So what are you going to do? Are you going to be afraid like they tell you don't go outside, tell your children to not go outside? One of the things that the CDC said was if there are people in your house who are unvaccinated and even you are vaccinated, you should wear a mask around them. So what does that mean? That means kids who are unable to get the vaccine because under 12, it is not cleared for children to get the vaccine. And even above 12, just as a reminder, it is an emergency case. It is not fully approved by the FDA. It's just an emergency case vaccine. Under 12, it is still not approved. Therefore, if you have children at home, that means according to these new CDC guidelines, you're supposed to, at home, even if you're vaccinated, wear a mask around your children. Again, we've reached lunacy. Like, I'm sorry. I love my children and I need to see their faces and they need to see my face. The human experience is really important and faces are really important to the human experience. This is beyond scientific. Again, you can disagree with my science. Go read the CDC for yourself. I'm not making things up. This is what they have just released in their newest outpouring. So what are you going to do? Like, are you going to live in fear or are you going to live in the truth that unfortunately, because of the curse of Adam, we're all going to die? However, we have hope in Jesus Christ that we will live on. And even Paul says, to live is Christ, but to die is gain. I'm not saying be stupid. I'm not saying go out and smear a virus on your face and lick people. I'm just saying, like, use common sense. If you have a cold, stay home. If you're sneezing all over the place, don't go outside. Sure. If you feel great, like I feel great, live your life. I am fairly healthy. I'm, I guess, middle-aged now. I just had a birthday, so happy birthday to me, but somewhere in the middle of middle age, but I still feel healthy. I feel great. I could still die at any moment. There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee for me. There's no guarantee for you. That's part of this life. But you cannot live. I mean, you can. You can decide to live in fear of every moment of every day, and you can just live that way and shelter yourself and your kids and your family inside and never go outside and hope that this death will never come for you. My observation about that would be that's not much of a life. I don't feel like that's living. I don't feel like it's living in freedom, especially if you believe in God and his gospel. That is definitely not living in the freedom that Christ provides you. We are free. We are free, again, not to be dumb, not to be idiots, but to live. And there have always been illnesses. There will always be illnesses. Do what you need to do. If you feel you need to get the vaccine, get the vaccine. If you don't, that's your choice. And there are bullies, that's the best way I can describe them, who are saying, if you don't do this, you are an outcast to society. And society is starting to line up around this. And it really is a bullying tactic, and it's unfortunate, but this is the world we're living in. So you need to make informed decisions. Do your own research. Go and do it. Don't listen to me. Go do research. Figure out what you believe is true based on science, not on what an individual or a personality or specifically a politician is telling you. If a politician is telling you something, you should automatically assume they may not be telling you the truth, because for the most part, politicians are mostly interested in their career and themselves. So if they're paid by the state, there's a good chance that they're influenced by the state. Just saying. Again, if that's news to you, I'm just trying to help here. So figure that out. So this is CDC new guidelines. And while all of this is going on, I do just want to point out, again, in the news, we have just recently passed 1 million people. So we're now over 1 million people, 1 million people. Just trying to think about that number. I was one time in a concert, a rock concert, before that was illegal, when you could do rock concerts, where I believe there were around 100,000 people in this enormous stadium. I mean, enormous, like 100,000 people. That was the most people I've ever been around in one place. This is 1 million. So many times 100,000, right? I'm not doing math. You can figure that out. Just consider 1 million people. That is how many people, and more, because it's raising every day, in the thousands and thousands every day, have crossed the border illegally this year. That is just this year. And many, if not most of them, have not been checked for any sort of illness or virus. This is according to the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. They have not been checked for any of this. So that is 1 million people. So if this virus, I mean, again, these are things you just have to put together and figure out for yourself. If this is so bad that we are literally all going to die, whether we get the vaccine or we don't get the vaccine, whether we wear a mask or don't wear a mask, because it depends what situation you're in, as we just talked about with the CDC. If it is so bad, and yet we're letting 1 million people in illegally, not stopping them. There are members of the government who are putting them on buses, putting them on planes, shipping them to other parts of America, to most never be heard from again. Again, you can read about these stats, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. So these things don't compute. Like, either we should stop everybody from coming in, because anybody who comes in, or at least testing everybody who comes in illegally, especially, like, why would we not be doing that? I was reading just this morning. Let me see if I still have it up. I was reading just this morning from Newsweek that they found in some of the kids' areas, the children's areas, there were huge outbreaks of COVID, and they weren't reported. Last year, there were huge outbreaks of COVID, and they weren't reported at some of these border checkpoints, where they were holding way more kids than they should have been, because they were letting everybody in, and they're still letting everybody in. Again, that's an issue that we have to deal with in terms of security for the nation, and there is a level of safety that the nation needs to provide in terms of external threats like that. That's different than the safety and the fear that we were talking about with your own personal health. But the government is allowing all of this, and yet saying, you, the person who is responsible, the person who should be watching what they do, now you have to do more, while letting 1 million people in, presumably with mostly no tests. Allegedly. I'll say allegedly. There's a good way to say it. So there are two things that are just not the same here, and you have to make your own determination. Like, what is really going on in this situation, and how are we going to respond to it? And I'm not even talking from a humanitarian standpoint that these people are troubled, because, again, as we've talked about, some of these people are in trouble. Yes. Many are drug cartels. Many are sex trafficked victims. The numbers on these are impossible to calculate. We talked a little bit about it the other day, and it is a terrible thing. Children, women, they are brought here against their consent. In some cases, they're sold to be sent over the border. These are terrible, terrible problems. And by opening the border and allowing people to just stream across, we are not helping this problem one bit. So this policy does hurt people, to let anyone in the border that, is able to make it. Like, this is a problem. So we have to watch out for this. Just to sum that up, I read this online. This was somebody talking about one of the news conferences. The answer is, vaccines are so effective, you should wear masks again. Masks are so effective, you should get the vaccine. Kids who are not at risk, we talked about that statistically, for this, and can't get the vaccine because it's not available to them, are now also required to wear masks at school. This is not science. This is not capital C, capital S science. It is not. This is politics. This is politicking. This is people saying you do this or you are a bad person. It is putting people into categories of moral and immoral, good and evil. It really is. This is where you are putting people. It is splitting friends. It is splitting families. It is splitting places of employment. The military is, there's a lot going on in the military in this right now. And it's not science. Science is, what does the study say? And if the study says something different, the study says A at one point, and now the study says B, now we change. This is not based on study. This is based on some computer models that at some point something will happen. That's not study and that's not science. Science is, what does this look like? Study it. Is that true? Is it not true? Go on and make something different. That is objective facts and objective science. That is what science used to be. At this point, unfortunately, science is not that. The science that we hear, trust the science, those types of things. It is more like a religion. It is, you will follow, and if you don't follow, you will be penalized by being put into literally like corralled zones. There have been some concerts like this. You have a vaccinated zone in a concert. You have an unvaccinated zone in a concert. This is a terrible way to treat humanity based on who they are, based on what they look like, based on what they do. We, in all of these different areas, are beginning to separate ourselves based on circumstances rather than figure out how we are together and how we can do better together. As I have said from the beginning, if you are nervous about this, if you don't feel good about this, if you are concerned for your safety, you're more than welcome to get the vaccine, stay home, do whatever you feel like doing. I won't judge you. That's fine. But when all of a sudden you or the government is saying you have to do all of these things in order to qualify for our rules that are just not backed by science, and you can't even decide which science you subscribe to, therefore not science, just politics and the blowing of the wind, then I have a problem, because you're making things up based on power and control, and that is not a way for a government to protect me and my liberty and my rights. Freedom is not free, and we need to speak about these things. Again, this segment probably will be canceled off of all the internets, but I feel like I have to say some of these things, and you can decide to listen or not. You can check all these things out. Statistics are readily available. You can read the CDC report and see if you agree with me or disagree with me. Go and find that out. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it there for today. Just a quick news roundup. So I just want you to know that we are called to not fear. You should not have to live in fear, because we are not called to that. We are called to live in the boldness of the truth and the knowledge that we have in Jesus Christ. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to agree with me. I do hope that you grab onto your Bible and start reading it. Read some Gospels, read some letters from the epistles, grab a good devotional that leads you through some scriptures today, and don't wait, and do it every day, and lead your family, lead your friends through this. Start talking to people and help them understand that we are free because of Christ, and we need to live according to the freedom that we have. And more we're entering into this place where the government is kind of watching over us, and they're covering over us. And in Canada, they're burning things down. In America and Canada and Australia and England, they're saying you can't go outside anymore. You can't go to church anymore. We reported on different Canadian church pastors being arrested. I expect to actually see more of that now with the new lockdowns that are coming their direction. But again, you just have to stand up for what you believe and know that in the end, the truth will find you out. Like, if you do believe the truth and follow the truth, you will be doing the right thing, even if the world is against you. And by and large, as we move on, the world is going to be more and more against you. I am rooting for you, and I know you can follow God more. So I just hope that you can do that. And as always, keep the faith. God bless.